What's going on, guys? So Bitcoin's working its way back up today. The good news is the Bitcoin miners aren't absolutely tanking at least, but they really aren't doing much today. But I personally like days like these. I like days where Bitcoin's going up and the miners are going down. I'd much rather be buying the miners on days like these than to be buying on days where the miners are blowing up while Bitcoin isn't doing a whole lot. Overall, we will see the miners go up as Bitcoin goes up in price. And I do personally suspect that the market is pricing in the fact that rewards are getting cut in half after the halving. To me, there's a clear buying opportunity. I know I sound like a broken record there, but in a couple months, we'll see how this plays out. I do believe now is the time to be buying the Bitcoin miners, and I do believe once we get to the halving, this negative catalyst will be out of the way, and the miners will absolutely rally. The halving is overall a great thing for the Bitcoin miners, especially those that are efficient, and we will continue to see hype draw into Bitcoin and into the miners, despite some pullbacks along the way. But let's talk about some things. So Bitcoin looks like it's breaking out of this pattern. We ran up, barely created new all-time highs, and then absolutely tanked, and now we've been working on a slow recovery back up, kind of this tightening pattern. Now we're breaking out of this pattern. I do think we're going to come and test our all-time high again, and it is a matter of time until we see a $70,000 and up price for Bitcoin. Seeing Bitcoin at 70,000 I think will be a huge deal. Now keep in mind, Bitcoin is still overbought on some time frames, but because of this recent pullback after we hit new all-time highs, we are a little less overbought at least, but still there. But that doesn't mean we can't keep running. Look at what happens every cycle. Look at the monthly. We're not really all that overbought on the monthly. It could definitely get much more overextended before it's time to really rethink what you're doing with Bitcoin, before it's time to potentially take some profits. I think now is not the time yet though. We're ahead of a huge event for Bitcoin. We continue to see inflows into the spot ETFs, and they're buying up the daily Bitcoin supply at a factor of 10, meaning they're buying 10 times the incoming Bitcoin supply per day. When the halving comes around, it'll be somewhere around 20 times as long as the demand stays the same. My opinion is the demand could increase. When the hype really draws in, when you see those actual all-time highs, when you see 70,000 for the first time, I think that's a psychological barrier. Seeing us get to the 69,000 all-time high, barely beating that, that's great. But seeing that 70,000, I think that'll be a big deal for the market. It'll be in headlines. People will say 70,000. I've never heard of that for Bitcoin. And the hype will draw in. And that day that Bitcoin hit all-time highs and then sold off and caused a lot of fear with people, well, BlackRock's ETF added a record 12.6 thousand Bitcoin on that day. And I didn't mention the number of Bitcoin, but I did mention the number of inflow in terms of cash amount, $778 million worth of Bitcoin. And we just continue to see these higher and higher amounts of inflow. Records are constantly being broken here, and I do expect it to continue. More and more money will be flowing into Bitcoin. And this is something to be aware of. If we get a 5% dip in Bitcoin, that's all we need for $2 billion worth of longs to be liquidated, which would definitely accelerate a pullback. If we can break our recent all-time high, if we can retest that all-time high and break out, it would liquidate about 1.3 billion of shorts. So really, depending on the way we move, we're going to see an accelerated move. So get ready. If we do see those all-time highs, I think we're going to see the low 70,000s, maybe 72, 73. And if we head down, if we see some pain, head down towards 64,200, this will accelerate a further move downwards. Now here's another theme that's going on with the Bitcoin miners. They're getting into AI. And Core Scientific actually said that the possible revenue from its multi-year deal with this cloud provider CoreWeave exceeds $100 million in revenue. But Core Scientific is yet another Bitcoin miner working on AI. And in this article, they mention Hive, they mention Hut 8, and they mention Iris, but they leave out BTBT. In BitDigital's recent mining update, they did see a 4x in their revenue for AI. Their previous mining update, they saw 1 million. This last mining update, they saw 4 million in revenue from AI. And being a company that in 3 months, in a full quarter, pulls in anywhere from 10 to like $13 million, give or take, to see 4 million in revenue in a single month for a side business, I think that's a pretty big thing. We should start seeing the revenue really ramp up for BitDigital, especially if they accelerate their AI venture. I do think there's a reason for this among the Bitcoin miners, being that they already surround themselves by computers, GPUs, software. They'd be right at home getting into AI. Many of them already have the computers necessary, the GPUs, what have you, and it seems like a pretty natural step for many of these to get into AI. And we'll probably see this in the future where these Bitcoin miners are getting into AI, they're diversifying their streams of revenue, and I think that does take some risk away from these Bitcoin miners. And who knows, maybe the AI side of some of these businesses could become their largest cash cow. Next up, I want to mention Cleanspark, roughly down 30% from its recent high. And I'm keeping an eye on this descending wedge pattern. If you look at this support level, this white line, it was a previous resistance. Once we broke out of it, we saw a huge reaction to the upside on the breakout of this resistance. And we have been utilizing it as a support on the way down. And looking at the resistance line, the descending resistance, We've hit this point like 3 or 4 times. We're hitting it again. I am watching this for a breakout, and then we're going to likely test previous recent highs to see if we can continue to move. But keep an eye on this pattern. The market may or may not react to it. Now let me get some of these random lines out of the way, and let me show you guys. Cleanspark is still very bullish. We're facing an ascending 50 and 200 MA, and this recent run getting so far from them, we were simply due to cool down a bit. We're due to reset the RSI. Things are looking much better now. Cleanspark is no longer heavily overbought, and I do believe if looking to start a position, if looking to add to Cleanspark, now is a good time. And look at their upcoming earnings. They're expecting nearly 100 million in revenue. Keep in mind that this earnings is going to go over January, February, and March. This is before the Bitcoin halving. I do think this will take the market by surprise, and I do think they'll see another profitable quarter. One thing to realize, or one thing to consider though, is this does come after the halving. This comes in May when they're going to be reporting this. So I think it'll be interesting for the market to see Cleanspark having a profitable quarter. Although it's not after the halving, it'll be reported after the halving. That might kind of confuse the market, and the market might think that they're seeing profitability after the halving. So it's just something to kind of rattle around your head and think about. I do personally expect they're going to flip to unprofitability after the halving unless Bitcoin really moves in price. And typically after all-time highs are broken, we do see a huge move up in a very short amount of time. And you know, honestly, I think it's very possible considering we're so close to the halving, and once the incoming supply is cut in half, we are going to see a massive move to the upside on Bitcoin. In my opinion, it's inevitable. I think there's too much buying pressure, and anytime this does pull down, we see more inflows from the spot Bitcoin ETFs. The Bitcoin halving is only 41 days away roughly. We're almost only a month away. Time is going so quickly. It feels like just yesterday this was at 100, 200 days away. And before you know it, we will get to this halving. This right now is seen as a negative catalyst for the Bitcoin miners, even though the bigger picture is Bitcoin's price appreciation will more than make up for the rewards being cut in half. I've said this a million times, but that doesn't mean that there won't be a little fear coming into the halving, with the market knowing that these Bitcoin miners from the day before to the day after halving, they're going to be taking in half as much revenue, basically half as much rewards, essentially. But many miners are anticipating this. Many miners are working on being more and more efficient. Many miners are aggressively growing their hash rate with more and more efficient machines, doing things like immersion cooling, and I really do believe looking back, this will be seen as a great time to have been buying the Bitcoin miners, and it's only a matter of time until we see if we're right or not. But thanks for watching, guys. Do you think we're going to see $70,000 Bitcoin this week? And where do you suspect we'll be by the halving? My previous projection a couple months ago was that we'll probably be somewhere around 80,000 by August. But honestly, you know, at the rate we're going, maybe we see 80,000 before summer. Maybe we're in the 70,000s by the halving, getting towards 80,000 by then. But let me know what you think. Do you think Bitcoin's going to tank coming up to the halving? A small correction wouldn't be too surprising, but a major correction, a 30% drop, I think is pretty much off of the table right here at this point. But of course, anything could happen. Thanks as always for watching, guys. Let me know what miners you're picking up, and I'll see you next time.